You know, Sela, as Americans, we love to go eat out, whether it be to convenience, socialization, or just for the love of food. But it's so interesting because statistics show us that we as Americans go out to eat 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah, that's a really big number. And it really shakes out to be about 2 to 3 times for dinner and a couple times for lunch a week. And so you might be thinking to yourself, whoa, are people ordering out for dinner every single night? And no, it's usually just split between those two. And if you go out of the home to work, a lot of times it's the working spouse or both spouses that will order out lunch about twice a week. And so it is a big number. It is also a big number for expense, of course. And it's also something that isn't very common in other countries, especially the frequency that we have here in the United States. I had a best friend in college and she moved over here, and I asked her, what were some of the biggest culture shocks to you moving from Canada over here to the United States? And the first thing that she told me, she said, the weirdest thing to me when I flew in was how many fast food restaurants there were and how long the lines were. And she told me that in Canada, it was super normal for people to eat out once a month, maybe twice a month, but it really wasn't that popular. It really wasn't that common. And the stats follow the same for the European countries and the developed countries worldwide. We are eating out way more than the average person is globally. And so what's normal to us here in America is very abnormal in most other developed countries.
Which is really interesting because my family growing up and my family now, I would say, we rarely go eating out together as a family. I don't know about the individual person per se, but together as a family, it's pretty rare. We're so used to cooking at home and we're so used to gathering together, but we never really go out together at a restaurant.
Yeah, and just for backstory, for those who don't know, you're Russian
Yeah.
and Lithuanian. So you're coming from a European culture.
Yes.
And that's why you're saying my family doesn't go out. It's because you're coming from a European culture. And so basically, they just don't eat out really, or if they do, it's really rare. I think I remember one time that all of us went with your family to Red Robin, and that was before we actually even got married. So it's been a very long time. Unless we've been on like a trip and hanging out with someone as a collective family, that's the last time I can remember all of us going out to a restaurant. Otherwise, in other countries, it's way more common, more desired to go together and sit at the home for several hours, prep the meal, eat the meal, stay long after. I mean, it's like a 5 to 6 hour event usually, and it's all centered around the food. It's a big deal, and it is so tasty, so much more tasty than you could get at a fast food restaurant. But the point is that we're not even ordering in on those meals. It's not like we're getting pizza and stuff. They're making their own homemade food from scratch, which is really cool, and it totally is different than my experience growing up in American culture, getting together with my family or other families. We definitely do pizza ordering and all that kind of stuff. So it's just totally different in culture when it comes to the food.
Well, I would say individually, after I got a job and started working, I actually started eating out quite a bit. I was probably part of that statistic, eating about 5 to 6 times a week. I felt like I would justify it a lot of times with my type of work. I was working with Amazon, delivering tons of packages. I felt like it was okay to eat all the time out because I was burning through so many calories, 100-degree days, and it was hard on my body. And I was like, okay, maybe a basket of French fries and a burger actually sounds pretty good versus those carrots you packed me.
Yeah, especially when we were in the early phase, didn't have a ton of money. It was really justifiable to go to fast food because it was cheap. And so I just think it makes sense. I mean, it does make sense. I don't think that most Americans are eating out even for the socialization factor, because like we were talking about the European cultures and stuff with your family, that's definitely socialization benefits when you're going out to eat with your family, or in the European cultures, just getting together with your family and eating. I think the biggest reason people are eating out, us included, is convenience and taste. And I'm going to say also that convenience is probably more so for the women and taste is probably more so for the men. Because if I'm going to order out, I'm strategically doing it when I don't feel like cooking dinner at night. And so it's a little bit spontaneous, although it is planned. And it's just, yeah, it's all about convenience for me. I mean, taste is obviously a benefit, but it's not the number one reason that I'm ordering fast food or takeout for the family. It's to give myself a break in the kitchen.
Yeah, and yeah, that's such a good point. The convenience factor is major. And when we're talking about this discipline of eating out and potentially the idea of reducing the amount of times we go out, focusing on a more healthy diet at home, this podcast is not going to be primarily focused on the health benefits or the lack of benefits of health wise in the food, because we all know that eating out is not necessarily the best for us, unless of course you go to a really clean restaurant all the time, which can get pretty spendy and hurt the budget overall. But again, the focus of this is not going to be to give you all the information of why eating out to fast food is bad for you, because I mean our audience is pretty smart. I would say they're well educated. They know that fast food is not the best for you. There's all those ingredients. You can look them up if you don't know. With this podcast, we really want to focus on developing that discipline in eating at home and bringing your own lunches to work and eating out less in general. And we're going to be really talking about the tools that you could start implementing in your day to day and just the different things you can start thinking about.
Yeah, and it really is almost common knowledge now. One of the most wonderful things about the internet and also social media has been the information that we've all gained. And so, like you said, we all are pretty aware of the very dangerous things inside of our food. In fact, when we were planning this podcast, we put a whole list together of the ingredients that were dangerous in the fast food, and we just kind of were like, you know what? I think our audience is educated, and they all are already going to know this, and it's going to be just, it's going to be saying the same thing they've heard probably 5,000 times. Mm-hmm. So we are not going to focus on that angle because we feel like it won't be super helpful, in the sense that we all know it's not good for us. It just isn't. We know that. And the reason we're ordering fast food is genuinely because it tastes good or the convenience factor. And I wonder too if the convenience factor is the biggest reason why. I would be curious the listeners' thoughts in the comments, but I'm going to guess, I'm coming from the women's perspective though. I'm going to guess that it is convenience, definitely. But that's just my opinion. But with that said, the purpose of the podcast is to, like RV said, give you guys tools to help reduce the frequency of doing it. And we're not here to say that we will never eat out ever again or that we don't eat out. We don't want to make any big statements like that because truth is we still order takeout. We still order fast food here and there. We still do it. And I don't know that we're ever going to get to a point where we won't, because it is nice to have the convenience sometimes. It is nice to have the taste sometimes as a little treat. Of course, when you're on vacation, that's often the only choices available. And so with that said, we don't want to make any hard line statements like we don't eat fast food and we never will. I don't even know if that's a super balanced approach anyway. And it's not realistic. I often find that cold turkey approaches rarely work. I just am a big fan of slow change over time. And that's really where we've been with our health journey. I would say that for our very first tip, the biggest change that you can make when it comes to lowering your fast food intake is actually a very slow process of eliminating processed foods at home. And when you work on your diet at home and your body starts to improve in health, then you no longer tolerate that fast food. I know that was my experience. I know that was your experience, RB.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, over the past 6 years, we've just had a transformation in our diet. We started off our marriage with me eating hot Cheetos. And over time, we started learning about dyes and high fructose corn syrup and all of those really inflammatory ingredients that were just killing us. And so it took a long time to get to the point that we're at the moment. And I want to really encourage the women out there who are thinking, how do I help my husband who is eating pizza out every day or eating out to lunch every single shift? It's going to take time, and don't trap him into a point kind of like you did. You didn't trap me and completely change our diet and only eat vegetables and only eat certain foods, clean ingredient foods. It took time to get to that point. And that's where I want to encourage you ladies who are listening is take it slow. And don't force your husband to do something maybe he doesn't want to do right away. But Sela did it really well, where she made small changes here and there, and then eventually I started feeling better.
Yeah, that is really the key to the process of health in general, or growth in general, or discipline in general, is it not? Like, slow change over time makes a big difference. It may not feel super significant to say, all right, we're not going to change our diet overnight. We're just going to get rid of food dyes in this house. It may not feel that significant, but every small change that you make makes a big impact. And just over the last 6 years, since both of us have been changing our diet, I've been fortunate in the fact that you've been interested in it. I know it's hard when the spouse isn't even interested, and so that's its own thing. But with that said, if you can gently start doing it, not just for your spouse, but for your kids, it will change the way that your body responds to food. And that's really where I wanted to reel in this particular point when we were planning the podcast today. I really wanted this one. I was very like, oh, this is so important, because when you start clearing out your diet and you start making those slow changes over time, and you go re-expose yourself to fast food and you go order out, all of a sudden, the food that you could eat, you no longer feel good eating. And your body starts to have physical responses to that food. And so, whereas before we made all these health changes, we could go out to fast food and we'd eat it and we'd enjoy it. And sure, we'd feel bloated and tired, but we didn't have physical reactions in our bodies. Now, if we went and tried to eat fast food, say at like McDonald's, we would actually have physical symptoms that were noticeably uncomfortable for like 24 hours after eating the food. So much so that the negative outweighs the positive when it comes to the restaurants. And so we found a workaround around that. And I guess a little side note, we've been able to find some good restaurants. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, because basically the price of fast food and takeout is almost the same now with inflation. So it's kind of crazy. But with that said, I just wanted to say that it will change the way that you respond to food. And that's going to be the most powerful way to get yourself to change, or to get your family to change. When you start eating it and you feel absolutely horrible, there's like, it's not even enjoyable anymore. At least that's the case for me. I don't know. I'd be curious if the listeners can attest to this as well, if they've made these changes.
I mean, absolutely, it's been the case for me, because anytime we go out to eat, for example, certain companies of pizza, my whole body aches from joints to muscles. My chest burns, got that super bad acid reflux. And actually, one of the biggest things that ended up changing for me was the seed oils. I mean, we've learned about seed oils from early on in our marriage, and have been taking seed oils out of our diets since really early on. But when my body started really attacking itself when I was consuming those seed oils, I started getting remember those real bad heart palpitations, and actually went and saw cardiologists at one point, because it was so concerning, all the chest tightness I was experiencing. What eventually we found out, it wasn't really cardiac related. It was just from the seed oils causing an intense amount of inflammation in my chest. And that was due to the foods I was eating, the Cheez-Its I was eating, and all of the other snacks I was eating. They were just killing my body. My body was attacking itself, and my heart was taking all the load. And so that eventually got me really propelled into the health mindset, and convinced that Seal was actually right. So maybe wives, that's something that your husband's talking about too. Maybe they're experiencing that same or similar symptoms. Encourage them. Say, there is hope. We just got to change your diet.
Yeah, that's so true. And another important point or tip, I guess, next tip in the podcast is, practically speaking, one of the best ways to reduce your fast food intake is to simply set a budget for it. And so there's a difference between what we think we spend and what we actually spend a lot of times. And so if you don't have a budget, get on a written budget. That's a really important discipline to have in your finances. And then add a line item literally just for fun. That's what we call it in our budget. Or you could literally call it eating out. You could do a literal line item called eating out, and go to your bank statements over the last 3 months and calculate how much each month you've spent on takeout food or restaurant food. And even if the number's higher than you'd like, be honest with yourself, because you're only doing yourself a disservice if you're not honest about that number. And pull the average over the last 3 months of what you're eating out. And let's say it's $400, okay? Let's say it's $400 a month. Pull that down to $300, put it in your budget, and give yourself permission to spend that money. And then as you're changing your diet, as you feel ready, lower that number a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Again, we're at $100 a month. And what that allows us to do is to either go out to a literal restaurant, so that way we can tip, or we can, when that's just once a month, or we can go get I don't know, take out once and then maybe something at the store. I don't know. And so that gives us some freedom to go out usually once a month. We also really like to go to coffee shops or ice cream parlors or things like that with the rest of the money. But that's what we've been doing. We've been really enjoying that. And I don't think that we're going to reduce because I feel like that's just a really comfortable number. I don't know if that's the number you want for you and your family. So I'm not saying that's the best thing. I'm just saying for us, that's where we've landed. I can't imagine going lower than where we are, but never say never.
Yeah, I mean, don't get us wrong. It's a challenge sometimes because, again, the convenience factor is a major player in the role. Sometimes we are exhausted and we want to go out, but over the years, we've kind of developed that mindset of, okay, this is our budget. We're sticking to it no matter what because we have goals and we have something we're looking forward to and we're sticking to that. But it's still extremely hard to stick to $100 a month budget, and we get that. But don't start at a hard budget necessarily. Like Sela said, slowly go from that top number and lower.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you guys because it's not like we've mastered this by any means. I mean, I ordered Domino's 3 weeks ago. Number one, it wasn't in the budget. We had already spent all of our fun money for the month, and I ordered it anyway. It was like $35, which in my mind is crazy, right? Like crazy number. But I ordered it anyway. I was tired. I didn't feel like cooking, and I got Domino's. And of course, it made us feel really horrible. And also, it just didn't feel good because we were overspending. I was overspending, and it was truly just a weakness on my end to not be able to say no. And so we're still working it out, and I'm definitely not a master at this by any means, but I really have been flexing the muscle for a very long time of making my meals at home. And I think that the more you flex that muscle, the easier it gets to deny yourself in the moment. And that doesn't mean that I've perfectly mastered this, like I said, because 3 weeks ago, yeah, that didn't happen. So, with that said, on that note, I feel like for moms, it really can be very tiring night after night after night to make a big meal for the family. And so another tip I just wanted to throw in there for moms is I think it would be a really good idea to have quick meals on hand. And even if they're not the most healthiest meals ever, at least you have something. For example, I got the big Costco pack of Annie's mac and cheese, and I pull that out maybe once every other week or so when I'm really not feeling it. I also have some good healthy paleo frozen meals that I can get from Costco. So I found some things that I can throw together super quick, and that is very helpful. So I like to have probably about 3 to 4 meals just on hand, ready to go for me to make for the family. And it really has helped me in those nights where I'm tempted to go order Domino's, and then other times I don't follow through.
Which, I mean, for the dishwasher person, those meals are sometimes refreshing because it's less dishes to wash.
Yeah.
But that is a really good point. I mean, having those quick meals, it's fun for the family because all our kids love mac and cheese, and I love mac and cheese. And like you said, the Annie's brand is a relatively decent brand. It's an organic brand, and it doesn't make us feel necessarily completely gross. And so it's just a good idea to have those. And maybe you don't like those options, but find something that works for your family and find something that your family enjoys and have a quick meal. I remember you told me there was a social media person that you talked with, and they would cook a meal but make twice the serving and then freeze the rest of the meal, right?
That is a really cool hack. She made a whole meal and doubled it and then froze the second half for the night that she didn't feel like cooking. I just thought that was just the hack of a lifetime. I was just so impressed. So
Yeah, super smart. Now speaking to the guys, because one of our biggest struggles is convincing ourselves it's okay to go out and get lunch, because most men statistically work labor intensive jobs that require working outside, carrying heavy things, and carrots don't sound all that great. At least it didn't for me when I spent hundreds of dollars at Arby's one year before we got married, of course.
was it
But
hundreds a month or hundreds a year?
no, it was like $300 a month, and that was
Oh
with a
gosh.
50% discount. So it's like technically $600
Because I
a
was gonna
month.
say hundreds a year isn't too bad.
No, yeah,
But
it was a lot. And that's not even any. Anyways, the point is, men love to eat out for lunch because we justify it, because we work real hard, right? And so transitioning from 0 to 100, going from eating out maybe 4 or 5 times a week to never eating out and eating carrots in our bags packed by our beautiful and amazing wives, sometimes can be very difficult. And so what really helped me, and here's a tip that can potentially help you guys, is not taking everything you love out. Start with eating, yes, a healthy sandwich, a healthy vegetable, some healthy seeds or nuts or anything, but still keeping in something you enjoy. For the longest time, I ate Cheez-Its, and I had a big bag of Cheez-Its. After I ate all my healthy food, I would eat those snacks, those deliciously crispy, cheesy, yummy snacks. And it's what brought me joy at that moment. Eventually, what started happening is I started feeling sick because my body started transforming at home because we were eating really healthy at home. And it was a slow transition to get to that point because we would still sometimes have a dessert or snack that wasn't necessarily the healthiest thing. But over time, my body started changing. And those Cheez-Its actually started giving me acid reflux, those heart palpitations I was talking about. And I started realizing I need to change that. And eventually I got into a snack, pistachios, that I absolutely love and that are absolutely great for me. And now there's not really much struggle in that department except for the free food that I get at my work now, which is a whole nother ball game and a whole nother struggle
Oh.
that I'm dealing with. But that's beside the point. The point is make that.
Wait. Just so that they know. Your job provides free fast food almost every single day.
Yes.
Okay, that's what he's talking about, you guys. And we
Yes.
have come so far.
I know we've come so
We've come
far.
so far.
It's so hard.
And he's being tempted with all of his favorites every single day. It's just I'm so glad I don't work there. I would not maintain health. I would not.
They bring barbecue like twice a week, and they bring like
How do you justify free? I mean, you have to
Man,
be
it's so
thinking about
hard.
the health aspect.
It's so hard, but like exactly we're talking about over the years, my body has transitioned, and it has been realizing when I ingest some of these foods, I just feel so sick. I remember this last week, I ate a salad. A salad. Most people would consider it extremely healthy. I ate one of those salads with the dressing, and my gut was on fire the whole shift. And I was like, what is going on? I ate my normal lunch, but I ate that salad because I love it because the dressing's so good, but I felt so sick. And I started realizing some of these foods are just killing me. And it took time for me to get there. And so encouragement to you men and maybe women who are listening, take it slow. Keep something that you love, but slowly your body will start transforming and your gut will start healing and your body will start curing itself through all the junk you've consumed over the past years, and you'll start feeling better. And then hopefully the plan and the goal would get you off of that snack that you love.
Yeah, God designed our bodies in a beautiful way where they really can self-heal. Now, I'm not saying it in a new age perspective by any means. I don't believe that. I'm just saying that if you get a cut, your body knows how to seal the wound. It will naturally cause the clot, make it, stop bleeding. That is the nature of the body. The body desires to be healthy. So when you feed it the food it needs, it thrives. And then when you feed it the food it doesn't want, then it doesn't do as well. But we can numb ourselves to the feeling if we're having so much food that's not good for us all the time. I did want to add though, we didn't just jump from in your lunches that you packed. So for the ladies, maybe you pack your husband's lunch. We didn't jump from Cheez-Its in the lunch to pistachios overnight. It actually was Cheez-Its, and then it was Wheat Thins, and then it was these pita crackers, and then it became pistachios. And that took, how many years do you think it took?
6 years, because I just got this year into pistachios.
Yes,
So it took 6 years.
6 years. And you guys know I love reading ingredient labels. I'm looking at the back of those Wheat Thins. I'm like, there's TBHQ in there. But I had to just, I just had to realize that he was going to do this in his own time. And if you have kids that are older, they're going to do it in their own time. We had a foster child. He was almost a teenager, and he had been used to eating a lot of junk food throughout his life. And I just realized very quickly with a teenager, almost teenager, that you cannot make them do anything they do not want to do. And so I had to almost sway him through knowledge about nutrition. I had to sway him through creating meals that tasted good, getting his favorites. This kid loved steak, expensive choice for meat, but he loved steak. And so I would just really encourage him into his health journey. And that always worked way better than telling him, no, you can't have that. No, you can't have this. And so with that said, your approach to reducing fast food, it'll be slow. It'll be slow. And cold turkey rarely ever works. I think slow will create the longest lasting effects.
Yeah, now at this point, I have no desire to go eat out. It's weird. I used to have an obsession to eat out at Taco Bell, and now there's absolutely no desire. It's crazy how long it took, but it took that long, and now I don't crave it at any point.
Yeah, it is crazy. And so it's just an encouragement, I guess. Another tip, and it may seem small, but I don't think it really is. If you are a soda drinker and you go get fast food at a place and you get soda with your meal, because they always make the soda basically free when you order a meal, right? So it's like hard to resist. But if you want to make a small change that can make a really big impact and you don't want to decrease the frequency yet, and you'd rather take a more gentle first step, the best thing I think that you can do is to get rid of the soda or get rid of the juice, because what's happening when you're having that is it's spiking your blood sugar like crazy. Drinking liquid sugar is very, very hard on the blood sugar. It is the quickest way to spike it. And when you spike your blood sugar quickly and super high, it makes you very, very hungry. And so then you overconsume the food. And by the way, sugar's addicting. It makes you come back for more next time. And so you'd be surprised at how big of an impact just getting rid of the soda or getting rid of the juice even in your kids' meals, because they always come with juice in those kids' meals. And it's on purpose. It's on purpose because even though I'm glad it's a better option. The apple juice is a better option than the soda. But at the end of the day, that even any form of liquid sugar is going to make you want to come back for more. And so when it comes to that, if you can cut that out, I think that can make a really big difference. And it's an underestimated tip to reduce your fast food intake.
Chemically speaking, when you spike insulin levels, the insulin is actually what's making you hungry at that point. And not to mention the other health benefit of removing soda is one sugary drink a day increases diabetic rates by 25%. Two sugary drinks a day increases diabetic rates by 55%, which is crazy. Diabetes is the number one cause for heart disease, and heart disease is the number one cause of death in the U.S. And so taking out this soda or taking out this juice, it's a great first step, because it's actually one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself and for your family and your kids. But it's also, like you're saying, a great tip to get you to that point. It's not a race that we're running. It's a walk of life.
Not even a marathon. It's a walk.
Yeah, and it's your health, it's your family's health, and having those goals and that vision and that perspective is so important.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in the Bible, at least when it was written, there were no fast food places to go eat out at. And this was not something that they had to deal with or struggle with. So we don't have a whole lot of instruction about what we should be eating. We can just follow the biblical example, meaning whole foods, foods God created. Some people would argue that that means no meat. Some people would say, no, meat's great. So, I don't want to get into the different diet talks here. For us, we eat whole foods, which that means meat, that means dairy, that means fruit, vegetables, and it does mean grains we personally prefer to mill our own grains because it's easier to digest. Anyway, with that said, that is kind of what we can follow from the Bible. There's a lot of mention about food in the Bible, but there's not a whole lot about what you should do with over consuming food. However, I just thought about this because it's the soda conversation. Proverbs 25:16 says, be careful not to consume too much honey or it will make you vomit. And it speaks to this idea of too much sweet, too much sugar, your body will reject it. It doesn't want it. I actually remember when I was young, my mom said, for whatever reason, she felt like she was like, hey, have as much as you want. My mom said, which was unlike her, she didn't let us have sugar when we were kids. put this chocolate cake in front of all of us. It was very sweet. And she said, have as much as you want. And I did. I mean, I've always had to struggle with sugar. We need to do a podcast on sugar one of these days. And you guys are going to hear like, I need some help with this one. So it's even more important to me to be careful with the soda and be careful with the juice or even the sweet coffee. That one was one I had really struggled with for a really long time. Now for me, it's more the desserts. But anyway, my mom put this chocolate cake in front of me and she told me have as much as you want. And I had so much that I literally vomited all of it out. And so it's kind of an extreme example, but when you think about the size of the drinks that they're giving people, even the small, it's huge, you know? It's a lot of calories, and I'm not so much worried about the calories. I'm more worried about what it's doing to your body on the inside, because it really is making you addicted and it is making you overconsume. And, you know, I mean, I'll be honest, I've eaten so much I felt like throwing up. Like it's just, you can overeat easily, especially with the huge portion sizes that we have here. So I just think it's interesting because we were talking about, well, what does the Bible say about the discipline of fast food? It doesn't have anything explicit to say about this because it's not in there, but there are guidelines in the Bible about just controlling yourself with your food.
And speaking of like the Bible, like you're saying, when it goes to talking about discipline, we want to honor God with our bodies ultimately. I mean, like 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, for whatever I do, whether eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God. And so our heart posture is to honor God with our body, right? And when we're consuming foods like sugary drinks and processed foods that are killing our guts and they're killing our bodies and they're hurting us ultimately, we're not glorifying God with our bodies, right? We're not glorifying God with our lives because, like I was saying, diabetes rates are astronomical in our culture and heart disease. And a lot of times we're limiting what God could do in our lives by cutting our life short. And yes, God is sovereign. He knows and has marked the time of our lives to a specific detail. I get that. But we have choices, and we have the choice to eat good or not well. And so whatever we do, eat or drink, let's have this mindset as Christians. Let's be the healthiest people on the planet, right? As Christians, let's be the healthiest people on the planet. Let's bring that challenge. Why? So we could honor God with our whole lives and glorify God with the way we eat and the way we act and the health of our bodies. Because we're in America, we're killing ourselves. And it's so sad. It's so sad. We're the richest country on the planet. We're the wealthiest. We have the most resources. We have the most access to healthy foods. Yet we are choosing to go to eat out of these places, and we're choosing it. And ultimately, it's not glorifying God with all that He's given us, with all that He's bestowed to us. And how much more do we just want to just say, God, we honor you with our bodies. Let's completely give this all to you. Why? So that way we can be most effective for your kingdom.
Right. And most effective, meaning we're healthy, we have energy, we are people that are alive and well and able to really fulfill the will of God in our lives every day to the maximum ability that we have. And there is a lot of our health that's on our shoulders. Sometimes people have health conditions that are absolutely uncontrollable, and it is a trial that is the Lord is allowed in their life, and it's a test, and they have been asked to endure it. And that is the will of God for their life, for them to glorify Him in that pain. And that's a hard trial that people have to go through. So I don't want to say that you couldn't glorify God in a situation where you were sick. You absolutely can. In fact, that's where some of the best testimonies come from. But when it comes to people that are just maybe eating themselves into sickness, that's a different story, you know? That It really is. It's a different story. And I hope that in all of what we're saying too, as much as we're talking about glorifying God with our bodies and being good stewards of that and being disciplined, it does not mean that you can't go and have a little bit of fun here and there. And that is why in the podcast today, we don't want to draw a hard line about anything, because I've said this so many times now, I just don't think hard lines work. I don't think cold turkey works unless there's a huge sin problem. And I don't think eating out's a sin, but like a huge sin problem, cold turkey needs to happen, right? But like when we're talking about a discipline, not necessarily a sin, but something that's not as good for you to do versus something that's good for you to do, right? This is more about moderation and a slow progress way of going about it. And so I just hope that our listeners hear that, yes, we want to glorify God. Yes, we want to glorify Him in everything we eat and everything we do. Of course, we want to prioritize our health and make sure that we're our best for what His will and calling is for our life. But at the same time, there is nothing wrong with enjoying it a little bit. There really isn't. Now, as far as what the it is, I think we can be a little specific about that, because for us, the places that we've gone have changed. And I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the podcast, but when we went and ordered Domino's, it was $35. And our favorite pizza place, that's a mom and pop local shop pizza place here in our area, they are also they're $32 for pizza at their place. So it's actually becoming, because of inflation, cheaper to go to not a fast food restaurant, but a actual restaurant and order a takeout than it is to go to a fast food.
Yeah, we love that place. It's called Apollos, and they make their own cheese, they make their own red sauce, and they knead their own dough and make their own ingredients. It's amazing, and it's so refreshing. It's actually the first place we've eaten at and that the whole family loves that does not make us feel gross, even though it's pizza.
Right.
And I think there's such value in finding places that are healthy, that the whole family loves. And it's not necessarily that Apollo's is healthy per se, but it's refreshing. We love it. We love going to eat out there. We as a family just enjoy just going out like that.
Yeah, so do some searching around in your area, especially since the price of fast food for a family and the price to go and get takeout at a restaurant is pretty much the same now. Crazy with inflation. Then it gives you more freedom, at least, to go and look at the places around you and see if there's any good mom and pop shops that really value quality ingredients, farm to table style. You'd be surprised what you can find if you really start calling around and asking. So just being proactive with that. But overall, this was all about the discipline of cutting back your eating out. And I hope that we've drove home the point that this is a slow process. And as almost all disciplines are, I feel like this is a slow process, and it really is something that you've got to be patient with yourself with, patient with the people in your family with, and just realize that we're in the long game for our health. We're not going for short little diets or short little fads. We're going for the long game. We want longevity. We want health, true health, and we want to stick to it. And so with that said, I want to end the podcast the same way that we end it every single time. And that is that we can work hard on disciplines in our life, but they do not earn us righteousness. It's just so important for us to know, just to make sure everybody just really understands this every time we talk about this. Yes, growing in a discipline can have a ton of benefits for your life. Sometimes those benefits can even be spiritual and growing you closer to God, but they do not equate to salvation. Reading your Bible more does not equate to you being saved. Praying more does not equate to being saved. Going to church more, health and nutrition, really any discipline, it does not put you in right standing with God. The only thing, or I should say person, that puts you in right standing with God is Jesus Christ Himself. We stand in grace and grace alone, and any efforts that we do to become more disciplined are simply to grow in maturity, to grow closer to Christ, and to be a better witness to the world around us. This is the Good and Faithful Steward podcast.